What does that education process look like?
Having that firsthand experience makes a big difference.
Right.
I look back towards, my retail days, and the amount of product education that front end employees were responsible for in high end fashion was astronomical.
What's going on, everyone? Brandon back at it again with another podcast. I'm joined today by Jacob Roland, the Director of Marketing at Loud Labs. Thank you very much for hopping on the show, Jacob. Welcome.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Brandon. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, as we normally do, start off these things. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been in marketing for like 10 years at this point. I've been lucky enough to work both outside of the cannabis industry and inside of the cannabis industry. My journey into cannabis started when I was in college, as it does for many people. But I got really politically involved. That's always kind of been a passion of mine. So, I was heavily involved with Normal, my Normal chapter at UC Santa Barbara. And after that, I actually went to DC with Students for Sensible Drug Policy for a brief period of time. A lot of culture shock, a lot of growth and learning, moving from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Yeah.
This was very early days of medical, so there was not a lot of opportunities on the East Coast for me to kind of stay within cannabis, which I actually take as a blessing because it did encourage me to go into more traditional retail routes and kind of cut my teeth in other marketing endeavors. So a lot of retail management. And then I've been back in cannabis since about 2021. So just shortly after the pandemic. I'm disappointed that it took me so long to get back because it just really is where I fit in, where I belong, where my people are, which is such a great feeling to have and makes it easy to go to work every day.
Right. Well, what took you away and then what brought you back?
I like I said, I was on the East Coast and was doing different things. I worked at Lululemon for nearly a decade,
Nice.
Which was a really cool experience. I worked in Southern California. I'm currently in Colorado, and I moved with Lulu to manage one of the stores out here. So was in several of their largest US markets, which was really cool to experience. And I learned just a ton about leadership, a ton about people management, and honestly, a lot about myself. And it was a great place to kind of grow. And I've been able to take a lot of those lessons and really apply them to what I do now. And I see a lot of those opportunities from more well-established retail within the cannabis vertical. A lot of times I think we think we have to create something brand new, but for weed, and at the end of the day, we are a CPG organization, just like any other company. And the playbooks are out there. It's just up to us to really optimize it for our individual businesses. And we're seeing success with a lot of that. And I think there's a lot of opportunity still.
Yeah. It's crazy because I speak with, I wouldn't say a lot, but a decent number of people who have come from the less restrictive categories, let's say.
Right.
of businesses to follow, right? And as you say, it's not, I think a lot of times people are like, yes, we need to reinvent the wheel because of all of these restrictions, right? But I don't know if it's necessarily a reinventing of the wheel, more so of just a little tweak here and there. Because obviously you have the strategies, you have the blueprints, SOPs, whatever it is. And then it's just well, if I can't do the thing, then I either won't do the thing or I'll try and make it work for me. And that's kind of it. But, you see it all over the place. You're like, this is a brand new strategy for cannabis and all this stuff. The stuff's out there. Just
stuff's out there. It's up to us to find it, Yeah. And that comes down to everything. That comes down to manufacturing equipment. It comes down to, software stack, all of that. These things exist in other industries. Yeah, we may have to hunt a little bit and we have to, like you said, make some small tweaks to optimize it for our specific business. But at the end of the day, we run just like any other business. And I think pushing that conversation to the outside world, people outside of the cannabis bubble, is really important. I'm famous for just talking to strangers.
Sure.
So if I'm on a chairlift and you're stuck next to me, we may get into a business conversation and I'm going to tell you about 280E. I'm going to tell you about the fact that I work in weed, but I still got to go to trade shows. I still got to punch a clock. I'm still on Zoom meetings all day long.
Yeah.
All of the normal, boring business things that everybody else does.
Yes.
We do too. Yeah, weed's fun. It's cool. But at the end of the day, we're a business just like anything else. And I think that's very, very important, not only for us to acknowledge internally kind of within the cannabis space, but it's very important for us to share that with the outside world, right? Because that helps dispel fears, and it opens us up to a wider audience, right?
Sure.
And that's gonna go a long way to kind of moving the legalization conversation forward, just like anything else, because people have these fears built up in their mind, and if they're like, oh yeah, man, that guy, he's not doing anything wild, he's just on Zoom meetings all day. That's relatable, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yes. No, exactly. So that's I guess a perfect transition to, kind of, why don't you touch on kind of like what does the day-to-day look like for you? You alluded to a lot of the Zoom meetings, a lot of the calls, going to trade shows, boots on the ground, making sure people are in the right place and stuff like that. What does your typical day-to-day, run in the marketing of Loud Labs look like?
I wish I could comfortably say there was a typical day. That is one thing that I will say sets this industry apart from a lot of other industries, or is still very present in this industry, is that every day can be a little bit different, because we all have to wear so many hats. We have a very narrow structure in our organization. We're very lean, which has been one of our, secret weapons up to this date. We have not scaled with a lot of bloat and a lot of excessive jobs. So it's a lot of opportunity for those that are willing to take it. I'm director of sales and marketing, right? Like, I have to do a lot of different things. And I hear this story all the time. And we can kind of get upset about it, like, because I'm under-resourced or whatever. Or we can say, hey, this is a unique challenge and a unique opportunity, and I'm going to run with it. I'm going to do all of the things because it gives me all of this experience. I'm collecting gold stars every single day, kind of a deal. So a lot of my day-to-day is managing my team, whether it's connecting with the sales people, seeing kind of, who they're talking with. Are they going to hit their numbers for the month? What does it look like to get orders out? Are we going to get orders out on time? That type of thing. I try and connect with our existing customers as much as possible. So it's a matter of sitting down and doing account reviews with people and saying, hey, are our products working for you? What could we be doing better as partners? What are your goals as a retail operator, as a store, and how can I, as a brand, help support those goals? Everybody loves to do pop-ups. I think they're a really great lever to pull. I don't necessarily think that they are the best way for us to be spending our marketing dollars, because our dollars are limited.
Sorry, pop-ups on the brand side, or pop-ups on the dispensary side looking to explore new markets?
No, sorry, pop-ups. Brand pop-ups. So,
brand pop-ups. Okay.
Yeah, if we were in grocery or something, it'd be like store tastings. Obviously, we can't sample in store, but those educational touch points for the consumer. For me, the value in those is really educating retail staff, right? We have a pretty high turnover industry. Not a lot of retailers are as willing to invest in the development of their teams as I think we could be. And so my team is always told to focus on really educating the budtenders, because they're the front lines in this industry. They're the ones that make it or break it for all of us, right? If the budtenders don't like your product, if the budtenders aren't aware of what makes your product different from the next guy, you're not going to move, right? Weed is a commodity at the end of the day, right? And so how does your apple different from this other guy's apple? It's that's what it is. And there are strong differences between brands, but I think we as brands need to do a better job of driving that education both to the budtenders and to the consumers. And then there's, like I said, a lot of opportunity for retail partners to really invest in that education with their staff. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's a lot of people management on the day-to-day, both internally, externally, and then just developing those relationships as much as possible between us and our existing accounts. And then always, everybody's always looking for new accounts. So I'm driving down the road, I see a new store, I'm like, hey, we need to get in there.
Yeah. You touched, like you pointed out a few times, like the importance of education and stuff like that. I 100% agree. And I think any brand would love to get to the point where you have the Coca-Cola brand power in the store, where it's like, you don't need somebody to explain that you need Coca-Cola for your barbecue. You just kind of go in and you get it automatically, right?
Right.
What does that education process look like when you're speaking with people? Is it just like you go in, you have like, I don't know, is it like Zoom meetings with budtenders where the owners are like, hey, can you educate my budtender? Like, how does like, when you say education, what does that actually mean from like a tactical standpoint?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. Obviously, through COVID, things have changed dramatically. People are a lot more comfortable online. So we have tried in-store Zoom meetings. You know, I find that the human touch is always more impactful. You're going to get more engagement, that type of thing. We have used education platforms, LearnLeaf, that type of thing. You know, where store staff can log in on their phones or a store computer, do some reading about the brand, take a little quiz, get rewarded with swag or with product, that type of thing. The one that I really do find most impactful is if we can come during a regular store stand-up meeting. Most stores have kind of a monthly all hands meeting, and being able to see everybody, being able to give the staff the opportunity to ask very specific questions about who this product is for, provide feedback on the product, that type of thing. Those are very important. Stores that I see being the most successful with this sort of thing will make sure that all of the budtenders, all of the team try the product in advance, and hold them accountable to that tasting, right? You don't have to smoke the whole thing, whatever it is, but try it, because having that firsthand experience makes a big difference. I look back towards, my retail days, and the amount of product education that front-end employees were responsible for in high-end fashion was astronomical. We had constantly changing SKUs. We had our core product lines. We had to know fabric composition, how much nylon versus rayon versus, natural fibers. Okay. What makes this stretchy pant different from this stretchy pant, different from this one, that type of thing. And we did a lot of product sampling to the team, right? New products would come through. Hey, 3 people did really well. We're going to reward you with this product. What we want you to do then is educate the rest of the team on how that product fits. How does it perform in your class? That type of thing. And there are some retail partners that we have out there, some dispensaries that are doing those types of things. And they're providing self-led education because it helps drive sales, right?
Sure.
The other thing that I think we need to kind of continue as an industry to move past is my weed is for everybody. Does that make sense? Like,
if you don't have a niche, if you don't have a target audience, who are you? What is your message getting sent to?
Exactly. Everybody's weed is fire at the end of the day. Oh, my weed's the best. It's so good. Like, it's all organic. It's great. Everybody's weed that's the bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, your weed's not for everybody, right? Like, is your weed for a casual consumer that comes in, once a month when they're having a party, they buy an eighth. They don't want to get completely blasted. They don't want a 30% weed. They want something in the 12 to 15%. It's going to get them a buzz. They're still going to be social, that type of thing. Or is it for a person that's in every week? They're doing concentrates. They want that high THC product. Those are different consumer profiles. And that budtender education allows for the budtender to ask intelligent questions, identify the needs of those customers, and give the customer what they need, not sell from their own consumption preferences, right? And that creates a virtuous loop within the dispensary, right? Because we want the customer to have a good experience. That's the most important thing with all of this, is that the customer has a good experience. They build trust. They're going to keep coming back,
Yeah. You have that trust compounding over time, and then, boom, 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 you're good to go. You're off to the races, right? It's that simple, right? So on the dispensary side, so I think one of the advantages that you would have is that you are speaking with a number of dispensaries, big size, small size, and stuff like that. What typical sizes are you working with? Are you working with like the big MSOs, the mom and pop stores? Because I do have a few questions on the differences between the two and stuff like that. But would love to give context to the audience to let them know what your experience is with dispensaries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's an awesome question. We hear a lot of people bemoaning kind of big cannabis, and this is a drum beat that I will. This is a hill that I will die on. Yeah. If you add up the top 6 companies nationwide, it accounts for less than 25% of total market share. Wow, so at the end of the day, there is no big cannabis. We're all still trying, right? There's still plenty of room for a market leader to come through. There's some people that are doing it better than others, that have larger retail footprints than others. But at the end of the day, we're all still kind of small compared to other industries. We work with whatever size. Our early days in Colorado, one of the things that really made us successful was we were one of the few companies in the Denver metro area that was willing to drive to the far outskirts of the state. Whether that was south of Trinidad, down at the New Mexico border, the western slope, all the mountain towns. And there's a lot of small little mountain towns throughout Colorado. That really built strong relationships for us. And we've never forgot that. I mentioned we're a pretty narrow and lean company. We know our roots, we know where we want to go, but we're not going to forget the people that made us successful. So we continue to work with those 1 to 7 store chains, and we find that we can have the strongest relationships there, and we can be most impactful with those guys, right? Not only do we continue to grow, but we're able to now use our size and our scale to and our resources to really help them grow. So those are the ones that I really love to work with, Right. Sometimes it's nice to work with the much larger MSOs just because they have so many systems in place. It's just it makes my day-to-day that much easier, because it's like, that's when things start getting a little routine, right? Like every week we have this quick touch base. We talk about these 5 things. I know exactly what the expectations are, that kind of stuff. So, we work with everybody. So.
So then what would you say, I guess, with the bigger guys, quote.
Sure, yeah.
Right? The bigger guys and the smaller size, like what would be the key differences? So, you have your mom and pop shop. So to give you some context again, like I've worked with dispensaries. They had 1, and now they have 3, now they have 7. And, they kind of keep on growing, right? And I'm sure you've experienced this as well, starting off with the smaller shops. You're like, yes, this is working well. We're going to open up a second one, a third one, a fourth one, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, it's great until that third one is not turning revenue like you expected,
Oh, man. There's not to sidetrack, but there's another episode of Podcast Guy, and I had awesome podcast. First store, super profitable. Okay, logic. Open up a second store.
Sure.
Oh, double profit. Open up a third store, triple the profit, right?
Right.
Turns out it didn't really end up that way. So,
never does.
It never does, right? It's scaling up. There's a whole, if the small things become big, right? The small issues are a lot bigger, right? So if you have that one person that, they just have the information in their head, there isn't necessarily an SOP, they're at that one store, fine. Okay. There's now 3 stores. There's no SOP built. There's no efficiency. There's no whatever it is. And it's like, okay, that little tiny small thing is now magnified by however many stores that you have, right? And it's exacerbated by now not making any money. Now it's like, okay, sucking cost fallacy.
You've got a key man risk if that person ever exits, all of that internal knowledge is gone, right?
Exactly. So, I guess that kind of takes me to my next question is that what are the things that you typically see the differences between the bigger guys and the smaller guys?
The number one thing I see with the bigger groups is that the marketing effort and relationship is not an afterthought. It's really baked in at the beginning of the conversation, right? We agree when we go into a retail group that we are going to be investing, 15 to 20% of total sales back into shared marketing initiatives. We don't necessarily know exactly what those initiatives are going to be up front. We typically have a target list, and those change based on annual marketing plans, right?
Yep.
But they are not just buying product. They're saying, okay, we're going to buy your product and you're going to invest this amount of dollars into helping us market your product for our stores. And that can look like a lot of different things. It can look like billboards. It can look like radio ads, all your out-of-home stuff. It can be weekly newspaper ads, email blasts, text messaging. All of those have a dollar value associated with it. And the really successful larger chains are taking that dollar value, they're breaking it up amongst all of the brands that they bring into their store. So it's not costing them anything, but they're ultimately getting the benefit. We're reaping the benefit too, because it's shared space and it's more impressions, right? Whatever that looks like. And so by sharing those resources from the get-go, everybody is able to take advantage of the scale, right? A little, all of us throw a little bit of money into a bucket. We end up with a bucket full of a lot of available money,
Right. So it's just the access to resources pretty much, and then the efficiency of distributing those resources is like kind of like the main thing.
I would say that's certainly some of it, but not everybody has venture capital, or a ton of staff. What I would say is that it's inviting the partnership from the get-go and asking more of your retail partners than just providing me with product, right? Say, I want you to invest in my company and our success right away. Sharing your goals up front with your retail partners and asking them, how does your product help me get to these goals, right? I want you to be a certain percentage of my total edible sales. I am expecting you to run this many units per month, whatever that looks like, right? Understanding your business, setting targets for every category on your shelf, understanding what your total basket composition is and being very transparent with your retail partners up front. I worked for another large CPG company for a while, and our primary clients were the two large home good big box stores, right? Blue and orange, right? And in that organization, we were directly tied into both of those big box stores' inventory systems. So I knew exactly how many units were on the shelf at all of my all of the accounts in my portfolio. And we, as the brand, were responsible for driving those sales. And a lot of those things were negotiated, up above me, right? Like as the relationship started. But that's the direction that cannabis is going to continue to move, right? The more that you're leaning into your retail partners beyond just, hey, can you give me this product by Friday? Like the more you're asking them to drive the business for you, the easier it's going to be on your business. And so holding those numbers close to the chest doesn't help. Sorry. No. Hoarding your data never helps anybody,
No, for sure. So it's more so the retailers who are essentially trying to set you up to succeed by asking the right questions and by providing the right information so that you can then help on their side of things.
Correct.
Compartmentalizing two sets of data doesn't really help anyone, but saying, hey, these are my expectations, or these are just kind of the goals we're trying to hit. How can you help facilitate that? And then the retailer is the one that's essentially going to set you guys up for success. But in doing so, you then can do the best job possible to help set them up for success.
Exactly. I can set up promotions all day, but if I don't have data coming from my retail partners, I don't know if that promotion was a success, right? And if I don't have a larger picture or a couple data points about the larger picture at that retail store, I don't know if it was a success, right? So let's say I run a promotion, buy one, get one on, a vape cart or a gummy, right? We sell 100 units. Last week we sold 75. On paper, that looks like a pretty good promotion, right? But if your total gummy sales or your total vape sales is 5,000 units, that was a very, very small percentage of your total category composition, right? So with that additional data point, maybe that sale wasn't so good, right? So having those conversations and sharing that data with your retail partners, giving them the big picture that they need to help drive sales makes a huge difference.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously you can't speak on all other brands.
Of course.
Just for yourself, right? So, okay, I'm a retailer, right? I've given you the key to all of the data and all of these different things. So you have all the information from me. And I say, hey, Jacob, we're trying to hit X metric, right?
Yeah.
Or X goal. We don't hit it. What are the steps then to take to then try and hit it?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's a really, really great question.
And again, you can do an overview. I know we're kind of sidetracking.
No, of course. No.
I'm just very curious about kind of like how this process works.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
It's being in conversation and saying, okay, doing your marketing initiative review, right? Like, okay, so this was our target goal. These were the levers that we pulled. Did we execute on all of those levers on time as we anticipated, or were there things outside of our control that prevented it? Did we miss a publishing deadline on a newspaper ad?
Is someone a bottleneck for approval?
Exactly. Where just going through the whole thing together and identifying, where was the failure, and if we can learn from that, then it wasn't a failure, right? Like there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be things that don't quite work, and the other thing too is circling back to that education, right? Is your whole team enrolled in those marketing initiatives, right? Or are they selling off the bottom? Hey, this is the cheapest, or this has the most THC, so take that. Me and the marketing team at the retailer dispensary are jumping up and down and trying to tell the customers about this great product, but all the budtenders are just saying, oh yeah, this one has the most THC, buy this one, So is everybody throughout the whole chain enrolled in the success of the program, whatever that program happens to be, and I mean, straight up, some products are just not right for certain outlets,
fair enough.
Here in Denver, Cherry Creek is a very wealthy area. There tends to be an older demographic that go to the retail partners in those stores. They sell a tremendous amount of edibles. I've seen so many times I've been in the store and, an older person will come in and they're hitting their basket limits on gummies and beverages, and it's just mind-blowing, right? You go to another location near, say, a college campus, and you can't sell edibles to save your life, right? But you'll sell concentrates all day long, so being willing to acknowledge that, hey, not every product is ideal for every location, and that's okay. Like we talked about earlier, not everybody's weed is for everybody, right? and there's no value judgment there. It just is what it is. So
I think it's really important. Like you mentioned it's essentially making sure there's no leaks in the funnel.
Correct.
Because you can market and you can have you could put a Super Bowl ad out. Well, I don't know if you actually can, but let's say, for example, for this conversation, right? Like,
right.
Let's say you put right. I don't know what restrictions there are. I would assume that you're not allowed to, but hey, the first cannabis Super Bowl ad out there, I think that would be, a very, very interesting proposition. So if you guys end up doing it, I'll take my royalty cut for that idea. But no, like I think, in the marketing world, just kind of filling the leaky funnel. So like you can market at the top of funnel and again, do the quote unquote Super Bowl ad or whatever it is. Yep. But if at the bottom of funnel where the person inside is asking about ABC product and they say, yeah, that product is right, then, I think the education piece, like a significant portion of people who enter dispensaries are still asking they're asking questions. They're like, hey, I am doing this. What would be the best for me? Right. Yep. And if the budtenders just don't even know about your product, have never don't have any experience with it. Right. Yeah. That education piece is very important. Something you touched on, you briefly touched on it that I found very interesting was incentivizing the budtenders.
Oh yeah.
So I talk about incentivizing budtenders to ask for Google reviews because that's something where dispensaries really need from like a local marketing SEO level and stuff like that.
Yeah, really helps with visibility. Yeah,
exactly. So what is your process of incentivizing budtenders? You mentioned you had like that, that program that gives away merch and stuff like that. Is that like the main thing?
So we do several initiatives.
Sure.
So just on a straight education, level, I don't like to put a lot of barriers between the budtender and the product. I want them to try the product, right? So I'll reward budtenders with product all day long. If this is a new product to your store, you should absolutely try it. And it shouldn't take away from your sales because it's going to give you more sales, right? We run contests, and I always try and make the contest as fair as possible. So I'll have individual rewards as well as team rewards. I set base levels for everybody to get those rewards, but then I also set stretch goals, right? So, if you're a part-timer that only works one shift a week, you're still going to be excited about the contest and know that you can get a reward from the contest versus the person who's working 40, 50 hours a week. Obviously, they're going to have higher sales than you, right? Again, I look back to some of my past retail positions, and the stores that are the most successful are the ones that are sharing their daily and monthly sales goals with their team, and they have set up incentive programs to encourage those retail employees to be engaged in it. It's not enough to just be like, okay, we have to do $50,000 in sales today, right? Yeah. Cool. You're paying me $15 an hour. Why do I care about that, right? But if we hit today's goal, I get a $2 an hour kicker, or if we hit our monthly bonus, I get X amount of dollars for the month, right? That encourages us all to be rowing in the same direction. And then again, those stretch goals, because you want targets to be reachable. You don't want anybody to be like, I'm not engaged because there's just no way I can hit that, right? Exactly. So, you should have sales goals that the team is going to be hitting roughly 75% of the time, right? That feels good. It's a challenge. I'm not going to hit it all the time, but I can hit it. And then those stretch goals, that's a real big reward, right? But you're going to have to work. You're going to have to really work to get there. So whether it's individual product contests, that's something that I, as a brand, am able to run. Or it's, store goal focused. Or that's really, how you're driving success,
No, it makes sense. I mean, at the start of this call, we were talking about not having to reinvent the wheel and change it up a little bit, but all of the shoe stores kind of have that incentive model, right? Absolutely. All of the phone stores have that incentive model. It's not, here's $15 an hour. It's like, hey, you sell, all these shoes, you ring up this person, then you kind of see everyone fighting and like, hey, how's it going? Right. So, that's pretty much it. So, aside from obviously sales, we want to drive as many sales as possible because, obviously you have to make sales, in any business, right? Yep. What other KPIs do you think retailers really should be, paying attention to, I guess, kind of have a successful dispensary?
Yeah. At the end of the day, like you said, it's all about sales. I don't want anybody to think that it's just about, driving numbers. If we want to do cool things, we have to sell product in order to be able to afford to do those cool things, right? Yeah. And that goes for me at the brand level. I can't have fun in-store events without sales because that's what funds those fun in-store events. Same with the retail level. Things that I have always found really, really helpful. Conversion rate, right? How many people are coming into the store versus how many transactions that you have. With cannabis, that's a pretty high number. You pretty much don't walk into the store if you're not looking to purchase. In certain markets, say Nevada, you've got probably a 2/3 conversion rate, right? Because one person in a group of 3 or a group of 2 is coming in and the other 2 are just kind of like looky-loos because it's a tourist market, right? So just being aware of what your regional conversion rate is very helpful. I look at total basket composition.
Sorry, question. Oh, yeah. That's super interesting to me. Are there standardized regional conversion rates that are publicly available, or is this internal metrics that you guys have found based on with your partners? Because that's a very seems like a laborious stat where it's like, is the budtender clicking all the people coming in? Is somebody looking at the security camera? Is this automated?
It should all be automated, and cannabis has so many of these tools in place and don't realize it, right? So more traditional retail, your grocery store, your mall stores, they've got a traffic counter at the front of the store, right? So it's an estimate, but like, you know, people walk through, the traffic counter automatically ticks, and then you run the math against how many transactions you have, right? With cannabis, every single person has to scan their ID when they come through the door, right? So you know how many ID scans you've had for the day, run that against your transactions. So we don't have good, industry benchmarks exist in other industries. In cannabis, again, we have kind of a broad understanding, and it's going to be very market dependent. But our conversion rate within cannabis is generally very high.
You walk in, you're probably going to purchase something.
Exactly. But as we continue to broaden the consumer and make our retail spaces more comfortable to non-core cannabis consumers, right? Which is what we want. We want to continue to grow the total cannabis market. Those conversion rates are going to go down, and that's okay, right? We want people to feel comfortable coming in, looking casually. Maybe they buy, maybe they don't, right? But if they feel comfortable coming into the store, that's a step in the right direction. Other KPIs that I look at, basket ring, right? How close to your max basket are you getting? There are purchase limits in basically every market. You can buy 2 ounces retail or 14 grams retail. So I'm not only looking at how close am I getting to my limit, but I'm comparing dollar value of that basket to the limit. Right? Is somebody hitting their limit on just discounted product, or are they hitting their limit on, top tier, first press rosin, the most expensive stuff, right?
Cool.
And looking at those comparisons. And again, this is very store dependent, right? Some are going to be in a market that the average consumer can buy a $5 pre-roll every time. They'll be there every day buying that $5 pre-roll, but that's the max, right? Some are going to be in those wealthier parts of town, and they can afford to buy, stock up for a while, but they may only come in once or twice a month. That's another metric that I pay attention to at the retail level is frequency of customer purchase. Right. And again, we are scanning licenses as soon as we go in. So we have all of this information available, right? How often am I scanning that same person's license? And are they a discount purchaser? Are they a full price purchaser? Do they buy bulk? Do they buy single units? All of those things can give you a lot of demographic insight into your customer. And if you're really doing it right, you're following that up with a loyalty program, and you're targeting messaging for those individual consumer types.
You're giving some pretty crazy ninja hacks. I hope whoever's listening to this is staying on.
Again, this is not reinventing the wheel. These are existing KPIs for every industry, whether it's grocery, retail, fashion. That's what it is. Yeah, that's exactly it.
I mean, you're essentially saying kind of what I try and preach, like, this is the whole increasing lifetime value thing. You either increase the amount that people are buying, or you increase the frequency at which they are purchasing. Right. It's really interesting that like this is just such a simple metric, but it's just like if you can do even these things very, very well, I think you're going to be at a much greater advantage than everyone else, because
absolutely,
in a world where somebody has some money, and I'm not talking about the business people. I feel like in this space you have a couple buckets of people, right? You have your corporate people, your VC people that have a bunch of money and then boom, spend as much money as possible, right? Then you have the secondary people that might not have as much funding, but they have the business savvy, they have some investment from here and there, but for the most part it's bootstrapped. And then the third one is the literal mom and pop store saying, hey, let me go get a license, let me see what happens, right? And I think something as simple as exactly what you say is like looking at your customer data and saying like, okay, what is my average customer, or even on a per customer basis, right? Like, is this customer purchasing more more. What are they purchasing? What categories are they purchasing?
Yeah.
Segmenting that list, going to your loyalty program with whatever loyalty program you have and saying, hey, okay, well, if this person purchases all this time and they haven't purchased, you know, in the past 14 days, just give them a quick little discount code and maybe you'll get them back into the site or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, these are really, really cool. You know, and I'm sure we can make this a full podcast episode in of itself, but
just KPIs.
Exactly, right? But, you know, between trying to increase the basket cart size and what I thought you said was really interesting that I actually haven't thought about was you have cart size by amount of product purchased and then cart size by maximum potential value.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So you can have cart size, but it exceeds the weight limit. So, but that could be less than your high premium products, right?
Right.
I guess my question to you is like, my two questions is like, one, just based on any of the metrics, just pick and choose, because again, this could be an entire conversation, right? What would you do just off the top of your head to increase any of those things, frequency, cart size, cart value, whatever it is, or total amount purchased? And then two, well, let's start with that. Let's start with that one.
Yeah.
Let's start with
So as a brand manager, as you know, a wholesaler, I make sure that my packaging formats are increments of maximum limits. So if the maximum limit on concentrates is 15 grams in a single purchase, my large format is going to be a 5 gram baller bucket, right? Okay. Because that allows me to make a bundle deal, buy two, get one 50% off, right? Okay. So I'm going to hit my maximum limit as far as, you know, quantity is concerned. As a brand, am 100% of the basket in that case, which is nice for me. And, you know, we can very easily, then we're selling 3 units versus 1 unit. That's one lens that we're looking at. The other thing I look at is, can I bundle products together, right? Like, is my customer that is interested in pre-roll, are they more or less likely to buy a gummy with the transaction, right? So can I make an interesting combination there that will increase the total value of the basket? Right. You know, and then what can I do then to drive basket composition with higher value items, right? Not necessarily whatever is on sale, you know, and that's brand loyalty, that's special edition drops, limited edition product. You know, we've done limited edition flavors, that kind of thing, or certain strains that are only available once in a while. And there are quite a few brands that are doing that at a really high level. But I think from a retail perspective, you got to do the math. Look at what's the most expensive product on your shelf, and how many can a customer buy in a single transaction? That's your maximum dollar amount per transaction. Not a lot of industries have that, and it's something that we have to be hyper aware of in this industry. And then, how do you get closer to that? You know, what are you doing to get closer to that? And run a contest. You know, hey, the person who has the highest basket ring for today is going to get a $50 Amazon gift card. Whatever. The budtenders are creative. We're a very creative industry. If you give the right reward to your staff, they'll figure out how to get there. I guarantee it. You know?
All about incentives.
At the end of the day, we all get bills to pay. We all want to do cool stuff. Money helps, you know, so.
So my follow-up question on that is like, okay, so you briefly spoke about how you have the person buying the $5 pre-roll every single time, but they're going to come in and purchase that $5 pre-roll every single time, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that almost goes in direct, I don't want to say direct opposition or even contradiction, but you have your current customer buyer behavior that you see your customers doing this thing, and you said, okay, let's go ahead. And I agree with you on sending out the emails. If they purchase flour, whatever it is, you send them emails doing that sort of thing, right? But what is the balance then, in your opinion, do you think, of trying to support customer behavior so that you know that your customer who's purchasing the $5 pre-roll will continue doing so, versus trying to change customer behavior and trying to increase cart size for that same customer? So it's interesting because you have your customers that you know are doing this thing, but you also want them to increase cart size, whatever basket value.
Sure.
But then at the same time, you want to make sure that you don't steer them away so that they just don't stop purchasing altogether.
Right.
So do you have any thoughts on that? Because they're not in direct contradiction with each other, but there are some conflicting things. So just off the top of my head, I'm very interested in kind of like what your perspective on that would be.
No, and I think this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, that not every product is for every person. And I think that there is a lot of honest reflection that retailers can do about where they are physically located and having that deep demographic knowledge, right? If we look towards other industries, a Walmart shopper has a different wallet that they're purchasing with than a Target shopper, right? Versus, a higher end company, whatever, right? And they're all valuable, and they're all buying similar products, but at different price points, right? And those retailers are located in different areas. So just having that really intimate understanding and being honest about who your customer is and what their purchasing behaviors are will give you some insights, right? So if I know that 70% of my customers are single unit purchasers, it makes no sense for me to launch a 5 gram cart in that store, right? Because a 5 gram cart is going to be $100. Who's going to buy that, right? But it does make a lot of sense for me to offer a 0.3 gram all-in-one disposable that's $10, right? So that's going to maybe convert somebody from a $5 one-time pre-roll to a small format vape that they're going to get a little bit longer use out of, and I'm going to increase that basket by $5, right? So it's optimizing your product mix for your store's demographic, and being honest about what that demographic is, and what little shifts can you make to inch that cart size up or that basket ring up a little bit. You're not taking advantage of the customer. You're not trying to offer them something that is not valuable to them. You're offering them a solution that is within their budget. However, if big or small, right? You're creating a product for that budget. And that makes a huge difference. So,
no, I mean, for sure. It really all comes down to, do you know your customer?
Yes.
Sell them the thing that they want, right? Like it's, again, don't want to overcomplicate the things. It's like, do I know my customer? Can I sell them the thing that they find valuable in exchange for the money that they have in their pocket? That's literally what it is, right? But I think the key to that is that, yes, that makes sense, but I think I would say at least the common retailer would need somebody like you that allows you to have the data to see what the customer says, right? Because I think at this point in time, with all this data, whether it's somebody using whatever POS system, whatever e-commerce system, whatever in-store shopping system, like whatever it is, right? Is it cash? Is it credit? Is it ATM? Blah, 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 blah. You have all of this data, right? And you have kind of like the language of how your customer purchases. But for a lot of these retailers, I don't know if they've unlock the fluency of that language, if that makes sense.
It's overwhelming.
The data is the language of
it's overwhelming.
Exactly. Right. Even for me, and I'm sitting at my computer all day, right? And like,
same.
I'm looking at these numbers, right? I'm talking to people like you, and I'm getting really cool insights. And it's like, I'm only doing this, right? So I can imagine for the retailer that has to deal with security, that has to deal with the property issues, that has to deal with hiring and firing and managing and all of these things, and vendors, they can't see anything.
Right.
So I think it's super, super important that the data is there, who the customer is there, but you need somebody to kind of translate that data into telling you who that customer is so that they then know what to sell to the customer.
And I think you can't be afraid to try something, and trying it once is never enough, right? Like I've always joked, I'll try anything twice because I may have screwed it up the first time, right? And I think it's important. So give yourself 3 months, a quarter, enroll everybody on your team and say, this is what we are going to focus on for the next 3 months, right? This is our maximum basket ring. And for the next 3 months, every single day, somebody's going to get a reward if they are closest to the pole, right? Whatever that is. Or, hey, our average customer comes in and they only buy one single unit, right? So we're going to focus on what can we do for cart attachment. We want to drive that UPT, that unit per transaction, to 2, right? That's it. And that's what everybody is focused on, top to bottom. That is the one driver that we are going to focus on, right? It's easy to get overwhelmed in the numbers, in all of these different things that we can look at, and they are all important. But at the end of the day, to be very, very successful, you need to focus on one thing for a sustained period of time. And then that will be internalized, and then you can add another layer to it, right? So.
Yeah. That advice goes for both business and in regular life. So.
Everything. Right.
That's a very, very, kind of good point. So, to kind of taper this off, this has been amazing. You've had some really, really cool insights. What would you say to, and we've spoken at length about all this stuff, but I like to finish off with this question is like, whatever you deem the next level being in my quotes, what would you say to a dispensary owner who's looking to take it to the next level?
So the next level, hire the right people, invest in your people, and listen to your people. These guys are dealing with the front end. They're dealing with transactions every single day, and they have insights. It's easy to brush off retail workers, but they are very, very important, and they are the lifeblood of this industry. And they want to succeed, right? We all want to do well at our jobs. That's just inherent, right? So reward them, hold them accountable to certain, education, provide that education for them, and invest in that, and you will go very, very far. Same thing on the other end, not like build strong relationships through your whole supply chain. Those relationships are what allow us to get to the next level, right? Look, everybody in this industry has cash flow problems. It's inherent to 280E. It's inherent to the cost of money in this industry. If you have strong relationships and you're communicating well with your supply chain partners, everybody's generally pretty nice in this industry, right? Like, hey, I'm going to give you half of, I know this amount is due. I can give you half now. I can give you half in a week. Have those conversations, be transparent, be honest, and lean into those relationships. And that's what gets us to the next level. We're growing the pie. We're not arguing over our slice. So,
exactly. The pie's not big enough, Jesse.
No, man, the pie's got a lot to go.
Yes, it's got a lot. Well, Jacob, where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
So the brands that we have at Loud Labs are Zubies, Doinks, and Pyramid Pens. So it's pyramidpens.com. Get Zubies, get Doinks. We're in Colorado, Michigan, and New Jersey. I can be found on LinkedIn, or you can find me at Jacob Roland at.
Perfect. All right. Well, Jacob, thank you very much.
Brandon, thank you. This has been
everyone.
Awesome.
Yeah, no worries. To everyone who's listening, I'm your host, Brandon Kwan, founder of Cannabud Marketing, the number one, not number two.
Number one.
the number one marketing agency for dispensaries in both the United States and Canada. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.